Florida Congresswoman Cammack for more on President Trump's legal battles. Congresswoman, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start with the Tren de Aragua gang arrests, many of them, a number of them coming in the great state of Florida. What's your reaction to them?
I think exactly what President Trump is doing is what needs to be done. There should be zero tolerance for these types of illegal, violent criminals to remain free in our country. And any step that the president and his borders are, the Secretary of Homeland Security need to take in order to remove them from our communities is absolutely necessary and should be done. And I think it's ridiculous that we have activist judges that are trying to stand in the way of cleaning up our streets. This is absurd. You now have Democrats saying that they would rather keep violent gang criminals and cartel members out on the streets rather than allow President Trump to use his executive authority.
To pick up on your point, there's clearly some GOP frustration with these judges stepping in and blocking some of President Trump's actions. Here's Senator Josh Hawley on that.
These courts are doing, these district courts, is wrong. It is unconstitutional. I want to be real clear. To me, this isn't about Congress taking away power courts currently have. This is about Congress reforming and stopping the abuse. They do not have the authority to go out and to say, Mr. President, you can't do this. Congress can make that clear. We need to do it right this second.
Do you share those concerns?
Absolutely. And I would add to my colleague in the Senate, his remarks that not only do we have the authority to reform it, but we have a constitutional duty. It was clearly outlined in the Constitution that the only court is the Supreme Court, and the inferior courts are subject to the oversight of Congress. Alexander Hamilton talked about this in Federalist 81. We have an absolute right to step in and, of course, impeach these activist judges, which we haven't done since, I think, 1804, but we haven't taken any serious action towards judicial activism as a whole since 1911. This is long, long overdue. And there's other things that we can do to remedy this situation, because impeachment is going to be a bit of a bear for the margins that we have in the House and Senate. But that aside, we could institute 3-judge panels. We could enforce injunction bonds if people feel so strongly about this. They need to put their money where their mouth is. Or we could just institute a national ban on these types of injunctions with these district courts. So a couple of things that Congress can do and should do.
In the Fox poll, there is some clear discomfort with President Trump using executive action. Let's put that on the screen to show the audience. 68% concerned, 31% not concerned, similar to the polling on President Obama going around Congress back in 2014. What about that, Congresswoman?
Listen, I think we all, irrespective of whether we're Republicans or Democrats, it doesn't matter. As Americans, we want the process to be done the right way. Now, we are up against a time clock, which is why President Trump is exercising his rightful authority as the executive to take action. Now, we have a mandate through both the Electoral College and the popular vote to execute on his agenda. We have to codify that. So that's on Congress for us to follow up behind the president and codify all of these actions that he's taking. I think that will put to bed a lot of these issues. But again, I say to folks who have issues with it, they were awfully quiet during the Obama years. They were awfully quiet during the last 4 years when we even had the Supreme Court slapping down then President Biden's student loan forgiveness that the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, said was unconstitutional. He went forward with it anyway. And the same people who were yelling and screaming about President Trump didn't have a thing to say then. So it really comes down to us just saying, listen, if the president is going to take executive action, Congress needs to follow up and codify it. We need to get back to work and make sure we're doing just that.
Congresswoman Cammack of the great state of Florida, thank